What's poppin', everyone? Welcome to the video. So in this video we are going to learn how to make a snake game using Python. So first of all, let's see the demo what we are going to make. So if you just you can see in the right side of your screen maybe the snake game running. So if you run it properly, so you can see the black dot moving, and once we are able to once the snake eats the egg, like which is in green color, it gets one box added to it and its score increments by 1. So that's it. So if you hit the walls accidentally, it will show you lost. Press C to play again or Q to quit. So if you press C, the game has restarted, the board has restored, and if we press Q, it quits. So right now you are not able to see anything there because it is not there anymore. So if we just go to our text editor, this is the code that I have written to make it. So let's start from scratch and make it again. So Control A. So before deleting it, let me tell you one thing. You need to install Pygame for making this whole project. So what you need to do is just go to the terminal and write there pip install Pygame and press enter. Once you press enter, if you don't have Pygame installed on your machine, you will see this requirement already satisfied thing. And if Pygame is installed, actually if Pygame is installed, you will see requirement already satisfied. And if Pygame is not installed, you will see like there will be lots of stuff going on there. So let's delete all this. We need to make the board, basically the screen or the interface where we are going to play the game. Okay, so for that we are going to use some pre-built functions. So first of all, let's import Pygame here. So let's import Pygame. So after importing Pygame, we are going to write pygame.init. Then we are going to set a variable. I'll tell you everything after writing this. I'll explain you everything in details. So let's write the variable properly. Make the variable properly. So after pygame.quit, we are going to write quit functionality. So after saving this, if you run, let's see, so what's happening here, this whole code, what is doing basically, it's showing the board and then it's quitting it, right? So let me tell you what the init method does. It basically initializes all of the imported Pygame modules, all the modules, and returns a tuple. So when we were like writing it, you can see it was indicating something. So you can see it's tuple, so indicating success and failure of initialization, right? It's easy. And then we are calling this function display.setMode, which basically takes a tuple or list as its parameter to create a surface. So this is 400 by 300. So once we run it, we'll see that board which is going right now, because there's this functionality called quit. We'll make this mode this board more proper by uh, not the board is right now quitting itself by itself when we are running it. So we need to, like, when you're running it, we need to keep the board in that place. So for that, what you need to do, we need to write some while loop there. So let's do this. So once I set the mode, let's call the display update function. Once we call the display update function, then we are going to set a caption for our board, like what the board shows on the title. It basically takes a string as its input, not as its input, like inside the brackets. So I gave the title as, or the caption as, set game by me. Now let's define a variable called game over, and set this to, not, it's not a function, set this to false. Now let's write the while loop. So we'll basically write while game is not over, it will get the event and it will basically print the event out, which basically means prints all the actions that's happening. So it's printing the events. So let's give a quick comment here. So if you right now run this by saving, after saving, if you run this, so you can see this thing, this board, this is basically the game board. So let me see if you are able to see it or not properly. So as it is black screen, you are not able to see it, so I'll change the color later. So right now what's happening basically is, you can check the terminal out. In the terminal you can see, like, if I'm moving the snake game, the board, it's showing what's happening, the events which are happening there. So let's make it proper. So right now, after all this, what you're going to do is, like, add the quit functionality. When the user just clicks on the red button, it will just quit. For event that you can see, we will add a if statement inside it, so that it runs properly. So if the event type is equal to pygame.quit, then it will basically set game over to true. So let's set this to this one, we don't need this actually, the line 11. So let's delete the line 11. Next, let's add the snake basically. So for adding the snake, we will draw a rectangle. I will be using the function called rectangle. For drawing a rectangle, it will be inside the for loop. So let's do it. Let's set some values for the rectangle. It will be 200, 150, 10, 10. And it will display the update. Basically, we will use the update function. So like the the as we ran the game before, like ran the board before, it is still running because there was no quit functionality. So for quitting this, what you need to do is just go to the terminal, click on it, and press Ctrl C. So it will basically interrupt the keyboard. Now let's run it. We got an error here, so let's solve it real quick. So I basically forgot to define these variables, blue and distance. So after defining these variables, it's okay right now. So if you run this, we get this. So right now I think you will be able to see it. So right now the dot that you're able to see is the thing that we did. Now to move the snake, you will need to use the key events present in the KeyDown class of the Pygame. I think, yeah, KeyDown class of the Pygame. You can check more about KeyDown class in Python in the article that you can see on the screen. I'll be linking the link of this article in the description. This is really useful article if you want to know more about KeyDown class in Pygame. Just check the article below, which will help you a lot. And also in this article there are like little extra things, so don't get into that, just see the basic stuff. That's all. What you're going to do is we are going to declare some variables called white, black and red, random colors. So let's do it. So let's define. So after this, what you're going to do is cut this line space between them, so to make the code a little cleaner. And we are going to basically set some variables called x1 and y1, which is basically the x point and the y point, and the x axis and the y axis. and then x-axis changed and y-axis changed. After this we're going to basically what you can do, we will basically set the clock or the time for the game. So let's set a variable called clock. We'll be using the clock method in which is already inside Pygame module. To basically write a while loop. So I'm going to skip this part, so that too much time is not wasted here. So let's skip this part. I have written this while loop here. I'll explain everything that's happening inside it. Just let me show you what's happening here. So right now, as you can see, I think the full screen is not coming. Right now, as you can see, the screen is really big. So let's make it small. So as you can see, it's moving. So if we click the up arrows, it's moving. So it's really fast. And boom, like we just created it properly, and like within just how many lines of code, just 50 lines of code, we created the snake basically. So right now we need to handle the snake properly. Let's do that. And before that, let me tell you what's happening inside this while loop. I am using KeyDown class of Pygame. The events are key up, key down, key left, key right, or k up, k down, k left, k right, and these are basically written as k underscore up, k underscore dow, and like that these are written. So I created two new variables called x1 and y1. X1 change and y1 change, basically in order to basically hold the updating values of x1 and y1. So basically I've created this like x1 change and y1 change just to update the values of x1 and y1. So what this while loop is basically doing is checking the event type. If event type is quit, then it will set game over equals to true. And then if event type is if event type is pygame.keyDown, which basically means when you click on the key down option, it just sets x1 change to -10 and y1 change to 0. It basically goes down. So if you imagine it on a coordinate geometrical way, we will see like -10 in x-axis and 0 in y-axis, means it's going down. So next it's same but with right, and it's k up and it's k down, right? So it was basically k left and it is k up and k down. So next line, what's happening here is x1 to basically update the values as x1 change is 0, and we are updating the values of x1 change and y1 change here in this whole handling all the values here. What it's doing, basically adding these values to x1. So by default our what's that told snake is between the board, so it's basically updating the values of y1 and x1. Then it's basically pulling the snake there. Then there comes like display.fill or dis.fill, which is basically doing like filling the board with white. So if we just change it to blue, let's see if it works or not. And after saving it, let's run it. We are not getting anything, so by default it's white, and I think we can change it to black also. So right now I'll basically recommend all of you to experiment on the code that you have written. So if you don't have any experience on Pygame, it will become really little difficult for you to understand what I am telling, right? So what you need to do here is experiment with the code a little. So after completing this project, you'll be able to handle Pygame. You'll be able to create basic games like the games that you have in your mind, like basic, not terminal games, but you'll be able to give your games some life by giving them some proper GUI. So next, what are you going to do after getting the snake moving? We are going to basically create the function called game over, which basically means when the snake hits the boundaries, it will show game over, right? So basically, in simple words, if the snake hits the boundaries of the screen, then he loses, right? So to specify that, let's use if statement that basically defines the limits for the x and y coordinates, or x and y axis. So also let's make a note over here that I have like removed it, that hard codes and basically used variables instead, so that it becomes easy in case you want to make any change to the game later on. So let's change the code. What we are going to do here is we are going to like basically add something called font style, like for displaying our score. So after the clock, let's add a snake speed. So let's add the snake speed right now. And next, let's make a variable called font style, and let's set it to the font that will be displayed. So let's right now, for now, let's use system fonts for it. We'll use the system font method for this. We basically give the size, height basically. So let's now define message, right, which will basically show like what we like when the user basically plays with it, plays the game, then it will show like when the user hits the walls, it will show what like you have lost, like that. Will create this. So let's make it. So let me tell you like what happened right now, what I did here. So basically the thing that I did here is I added some changes in this while loop, and I added this message called you lost, because I created this message function, basically created this message function which will basically show the message, right? So what it's taking, this message function is basically taking the color and the message, right? So and next it's basically the display kind of stuff, like where it will be displayed, it will be displayed in the middle. So that's why we are calling this message function, that's why I created that message function, right? So then we created this pygame display dot update, then it will basically update the board and it will sleep for 2 seconds. Next, let's see this one. So as we have created this while loop, what's happening inside this? So in there's no basically no change here. So as I have created I think created a variable here, snake block named variable, no. So what's happening here is we have used this while loop before. I just added some little changes here. That is, I added this snake block which is pre-built, and I added nothing else here. So everything is fine, good to go. Let's save it. After saving it, if we run this, so let's play this. So let's hit the walls and it shows you lost. I don't know if you are able to see it or not. So let's run it again and see. Okay, you are able to see it. So if we just go and hit it, it's showing you lost, and see, like once I hit it, it's making the board white, which basically means it's updating the board. So as you can see here, this method I've used pygame.display.update. So let's check what you can do next. So like the main thing that you need to add here is the food for the snake. Now I'll basically increase the size of a snake when it eats the foods, and also if the snake collides with his own body, the game is over, and I'll see a message called you lost. So I'll be adding some commands called Q to quit and C to play again. And the length of the snake is basically contained in a list, and the initial size that is specified is like the initial size of the snake is basically 1, right? So it's a square, small square, and after he eats one food, it basically adds that box. So let's do that. So there are like we have defined white, black, red, and let's define some other colors like yellow, green, and blue. So yellow is basically 255, and 102. Green is let me check the docs. Green is 02550, and blue is 51, 53, and 123, 213. So that's it, and what you're going to do here is um, 213, and width is this, height is this. We're going to change the height uh, and width basically, so let's change it so that it's not like monster size board. So let's change the width to 600 and height to 400 so that it's proper, right? So game over is set to false, right? We can set this game over inside a function called game loop, so that like if the game over is false, like there's no need of defining it outside the function, because we need to call global again and again. So for that we will define it inside the function called game loop. So before cutting it, let's make a variable called clock. I think I've already made that clock. Yeah, so here you can see the clock is already there. There's a snake speed, and let's add snake block. Snake block and set it to 15, and let's set snake block to 10, and snake speed, let's make it half, it's 15. Now it's everything's going fine. Everything's going fine. Okay, so let's make a function called rsnake, which will take two attributes, snake block and snake lists. So let's make the function. It will basically take two attributes, snake block and snake lists. So let's update this whole game. It will take a little long time, so let's skip this part, and after this I'll tell you what's happening inside the code. So as you can see right here, I made some changes. So let me show you what I did here. I added some variables called as you can see, like this is the score for this variable, and this variable, this is basically the score font and this font style. So font style is basically the font style of like the basic font style of what will be shown on the screen, like when you lose and all those. And score font is basically the place where the score will be displayed, the font of the scoreboard. Next, I've created this, as I was doing, I created this function called rsnake, which is technically taking the snake block and snake list. So in snake list, for every object or for every item in snake list, Pygame is drawing on the board in black color. Like Pygame is drawing on the board whatever is in on the snake list, it's drawing it on the board. So if we check it properly, I define snake list here. So right now you can see here snake list, it's an empty list. So like it's basically taking whatever we are, like whenever we are eating a food, then there's a message function as I showed you, then comes the game loop. I like made some little changes here. Like when game, like I defined two variables, those are game over and game close. So if game is over, no, game close, no. So if x1 is basically display widths half, and y1 or y coordinate is basically display boards y coordinates half, display heights y coordinates display heights y coordinates half, right? So, or you can say display heights half. Then as you know, like we made these variables x1 change and y1, which basically updates x1 and y1. Then the length of the snake, which is 1, initializing the length of the snake as 1. Then it takes two things, food x and food y. So like in two places, so it divide the board into two parts. As a graph, you'll get two parts, one is x-axis and another is y-axis. When the snake is eating the food in x-axis, it's food x, and if it's eating in y-axis, it's food y. Then the while loop comes. I created inside the while loop, I created the nested while loop, which is, if you don't know about nested while loop, in simple terms, if you want to know in details, just google it, or go to Python docs, you will find it there. Or in simple words, if you want to know what are nested while loops, it's basically a while loop inside a while loop. That's really simple. So what it's basically doing, if game close equals to true, then it will fill the board with blue, and it will show the message call you lost, press C to play again, like that, Q to quit, and it's in red color. So this message function, as we have created earlier, then it will display the board and update it. Then what's happening here is the for loop that you have made. No, this is the new for loop, and this is the for loop that you made. So this for loop, what it's doing basically, it's handling game over and game close. So if event.type is pygame.keyDown, then it, like if you press key down, then it will show this one, all this, right? So if we press Q, so key Q, if you press Q, it will set game over to true and game close to false. The game will not close. Okay, so if we set to C, then it will set game loop, right? And this is a for loop that we have created earlier. Next comes this if statement that we have created, this much. So no, the if statement is this much. So I think I told you about it. So anyway, so if x1 is greater than equal to displays width, or x1 is less than 0, or vice versa, like y1 is greater than equals to this height and y1 less than 0, then it will set game close to true. So it will happen automatically here in this for loop. Then it comes x1 and x1 change, and y1 and y1 change. So as I told you before, it is basically updating the board, this x1 plus equal to x1 change, y1 change. So the thing that is appending or adding one more box to the snake is this append method that Pygame already has. this append method. So it's adding it to the snake head. Next, we are using the len function in snake list to check or deal with the snake list. So if len of snake list is greater than len of snake, then it will del snake list 0. So it will basically delete this one, the first item. Next, there's a for loop again for x in snake list from the beginning to -1 on the end. It will have basically a if statement, like if x equals to snake head, then it will set game close equals to true. Next, we are making a snake, basically the function that we defined earlier. So if we just control click here, so boom, we get to our this function. So this is the function that we created. So next, let's come, I lost yeah, so then it's updating the board or the display, and this basically what it's doing is checking food here. So if x1 is equal to food x and y1 equals to food y, food y or foodie it's doing like this: food x equals to random dot rand range. It's like we are basically using a random function, and I forgot to tell you one thing, that don't forget to import random and time. Like we use this clock method, it's using this time module that's pre-installed in your system, and random is also pre-installed package or module in Python, and just import it. It will basically randomly generate the food, right? So next, we are using the time module to calculate the snake speed. Then it's if pygame.quit, then it will quit. Like it's like if you click on the red button, it will basically quit, and then it's game loop. Like we are calling the game loop function, which is like basically looping through the game again and again. This whole project is similar to the project that we created on this channel, the tic-tac-toe project. If you have not checked that out, please go and check it out. I'll link it, actually the link will be in the description or comment. That game is similar to this, but this is little complex than that. And I divide all my projects into functions, small functions, which makes the project really easy, right? So right now, if you run this game after saving it, so if you run this game, let me see if you are able to see this or not. Let me make it bigger, and let me make it a little small, and boom, you are able to see this. So if you just run it, so as you're able to see, we are able to eat the eat the food, and our size is increasing. So once we hit the walls, we will be able to see this. You lost, press C to play again or Q to quit. So if you press C, it basically calls the update display.update function or method, which basically updates the board. And let's so if you press Q, it basically quits, and that's it. And I'll link this code, I'll just link this code in the description. It will be Google Drive link. Just go there and download the file. If you want this code for reference, I'll link this file. Just download it and follow along so that you don't run into any error. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next video. Peace.